Hello guys, welcome again to Matrix Engineers. In this video I'm going to show you how to create a RESTful API, how to implement a RESTful API where we do create, read, update and delete, where we will consume the API. So now we are going to start. Let us start. We are going to use Spring Boot. It is a popular framework for Java programming language. So let us start. So now what you have to do is you have to start Spring. This is Spring initializer. We have to use Maven and Java. So the project you're going to call it employees. So let's call the project employees. So now we are going to use Java version 21 and we are going to add the dependencies. We are going to add Spring Web for building web, including RESTful application using Spring MVC. This by default include Apache Tomcat. So we are also going to include the MySQL driver. This is for database. We are going to use MySQL database. We're also going to include Spring Data GPA. This helps us to handle the SQL. We are also going to need Spring Boot developer tools. So now we are going to generate our project. You see, now we have it. It is in a download. Have to copy it and paste it in our local disk D, where we are going to store. Let's use desktop, where we are going to use to store application. So now what you're going to do, let's create a database called employee in MySQL. Let's open XAMPP. We are going to use XAMPP for MySQL database. This is MySQL database. It runs on port 3306 and Apache. So now let's open a browser. So now let's localhost. Let's create a new database. Let's call it employees. So now you see, now it is created. It is empty. There is no table here in a database employee. So now what you're going to do, you're going to start it to write the codes. So before starting it to write the code, let's extract our project. We're going to extract it here. You see we have employees here, project extracted folder. So now we are going to use IntelliJ ID. So let's open the project. It is located on this is our project. Let's open it here in this window. So now you see it is resolving dependence of employees. So now what you are going to do now, it is updating Microsoft Defender configurations. Let us wait. So now what you're going to do, you see we have Maven folder and source folder. We have main for where we have it write our codes and the test for testing environment. This is employees package. This is our employees application, Spring Boot application. So this is what you can use to run Spring Boot application. This is where we run our application, employees application. You see we have a main, and every Java program must have a main where it starts to execute. So now, as you see, fail to determine a suitable driver, but we didn't configure data source of URL. we are going to start by configuring this URL database and MySQL drivers. So now let us start. To configure this, you have to come here on resources and you have to come to application properties. Now we are going to start to configure the database configuration. We are going to configure now the driver class. So we have to write a spring dot data source dot driver minus class name, so which is equal to this have to be equal to com dot MySQL dot cg dot gdbc dot driver. So now this is specified the full qualified name of the gdbc driver class for MySQL. In this case, it is set to the MySQL connector. It is a MySQL connector class. So now what you're going to do, we are going to configure the URL. So we have to use a spring dot data source dot URL equal gdbc to be equal gdbc MySQL. Our database in local machine, so we have to use localhost and you have to let's open XAMPP and the database. Let's open XAMPP. We have already created the database and our database name is employees. So our database name is employees. So localhost, the port that you have it right here is this the ports of MySQL database 3306. So slash our database name is employees. This is the database name we have here, employees. It is this employees. So now what you're going to do now, we are going to for this URL, this define the gdbc URL for connecting to MySQL database. In this case, gdbc MySQL is a protocol for connecting to MySQL database. Localhost with port 3306 is the host and the port where MySQL database is running, and the localhost means the database is on the same machine or local machine. So employees is the name of database to connect it to. So now what you are going to do, we are going to write we are going to specify the user that you are going to use in our database. So we have to write a spring dot data source dot username, which is going to be equal to lots. So here this specify the username used to connect to MySQL database, and in this case it is set to lot. we are using root as a user. So now we are going to specify the password. So we have to write a spring dot data source dot password. So password by default is empty. So this specifies the passwords to connect to MySQL database, and in this example the password is empty. If you have a password on your root user, you can provide it here. So now what you're going to do, you're going to deal with GPA. So when we say GPA, this is going to help us to deal with SQL queries. So let's write it. Spring dot GPA dot show SQL, and it is going to be true. So after that, this is Spring GPA show SQL, which is equal to true. This enable the logging of SQL statement to the console. When you set it to true, it will print SQL statement to the console. This can be useful for debugging and understanding the queries generated by Hibernate, the GPA provider. So we are going to use also data definition language. So we have it write Spring. This helps us to handle CRUD, create, read, update, and read. So spring dot GPA dot Hibernate dot data definition language auto, which is going to be equal to update. So this is specify the behavior of Hibernate data definition language generation. So in this case, it is set to update, which means that Hibernate will automatically update the database schema based on the entity class. This can be useful during development, but it should be used with a caution in production. So you see that it includes Spring GPA Hibernate data definition language auto include. This include validate the database schema, update database schema, create, drop. There are so many things. So after that, you have to save this. So now we are going to start to write our application. Now we are going to write the entity class. Here, let's create the model. No, we are going. Let's create models. So on models, what you're going to do, you're going to create so entity class. We're going to call it employee. So this is employee, and this we have to use a notation of entity because this is entity class. We also have to specify the table that we need to use. Name, let's call it table name, let's call it employees. So now we are going to specify the parameters. So let's use private int teacher ID, private string first name, private string last name, private string position private string, so private double salary, private long phone number, So now we are going to generate this ID have to be ID, and you have to make it generated value. So you have to use strategy go generated type, it is identity. So now you see that. So now what you are going to do after declaring these parameters, you are going to set setters and getters. You have to do right click here and come to generate, or with a shortcut you can press Alt plus insert. So after that you are going to come to getter and setter. So you have to select all of this. After that you have to do OK. You see that first now. So after that, what you are going to do, you are going to create a new package again. You are going to call it repositories. This helps us to deal with the database repositories. So in repositories, what you are going to do is you are going to create a interface of, you have to come and click here interface. You are going to call it employee repository. This is interface. So after that, this interface will extend to GPA. This extends to GPA repository, and here on repository, what we do, we inject there our entity class, which is equal. The entity class, it is entity class name is a employee. This class, you have to come and copy it, and you have to come and paste it here. So you have to import it, import a class. So after that, what you do, you have to know your identity. If it is integer, if it is varchar, it is long. You see, we are using integer for identity. So we have to come here and use integer because of ID. So let's use integer. So after that, what you are going to do now, you are going to create another package, and you are going to call it controllers. So controllers, you are going to create call it employee controller. So after that, you have to bring here annotation of REST controller. We also have to bring here the annotation of request mapping. This where we put the URL of our project. We are going to call it API/employees. So after that, we have to inject our repository interface here. So we have to private. We have to bring this repository, employee repository, control copy, and we have to bring it here in employee controller. So we have to import it, and you declare repo. So now what you are going to do here, we have to put here the annotation of auto-wired. So after that, what you are going to do is to create a method. You are going to create get mapping annotation. You have to put here annotation of get mapping. This you're going to create a method that helps us to retrieve all information that are in database. So all registered employees, for example. So now what we do, we have to use public REST. So here we have to put here employee, this class, this control copy, and we have to paste it here. So we have to import it. Let's import this class employee. So this you get employees function. So after that, we have to return repo. This repo is this for repositories that help us to deal with database. So repo dot find all. So now we are going to test it by using Postman. Let's run Java application. We are running our application. So you see now Hibernate created table employees integer not null auto increment, first name, last name, phone number, position in the salary, primary key ID. So you see that. So after that, what you are going to do, the Apache Tomcat is running on port 8080 HTTP. So let's open Postman. This is a Postman. So we are going to use here. We are going to create here what you are going to do is to create a new HTTP get method and have it use HTTP localhost, because application is running on our machine, port 8080. As you have seen, it is on port this port 8080. the port that you use here, slash, we are going to use this. Let's show you the endpoint that we are going to use. We have to copy this and bring it here in a Postman here. So now we are going to send the request. You see, the response is okay, no problem. But you see, in a list is empty. The reason why the list is empty is because there is nothing in the database. So let's insert some data into database. So let's refresh. After running application, by default application create the table that we specified in the codes. Here the table is employees. Table name is employees. Now it is created after running the application. Let me show you. You see now it is empty. We didn't create a table. So now let's refresh. Let us refresh. Wait a moment. You see, we have table employees, and the table employees is empty. It is empty. So ID, first name, last name, phone number, position, and salary. So let's insert some data. Here we have to insert first name, John. Let's use matrix. Engineers, phone number plus 250 788 599069. So the position, let's use senior software developer, and the salary, let's use 2 million. So let's insert this data. So now you see, now in our table we have a records. So now let us see if we are going to get this through Postman. So you see now it was empty. So you see now we have matrix engineers, position is a senior software developer, salary is 2M, phone number is this. So now this is how we retrieve the data from database using API. This is the API with employees endpoint, API/employees endpoint. So now what you're going to do, we are going to insert another employee in a database. I'm going to show you how you can retrieve information of one employee from a database if there is many employees in a database according to the ID. So now let's insert another employees. Let's use John Mbanda. So is a phone number. Let's use this by default and 8. Position is a senior. CRUD engineer. So salary is 160. So let's insert it. You see, we have to we have to record in our table, and the table name is employees. So now let's retrieve again through Postman. You see that we did retrieve more than 2. Now we are going to see how we can get employees according to his or her ID. So now let's do it. Let's write a code. So what we are going to do, you have to employee controller. You have to write another. I'm going to use get mapping. And the get mapping, you have to use. You have to specify the ID, because we are going to retrieve employees according to ID. So now let's public. Here we're going to use the response entity, and in a response entity we have to include our entity class. It is employee. So now what you're going to do, we are going to write here what you're going to do now. You're going to write get employee method. So here we have to specify the path that you are going to use. So the path variable, we have to use a notation of path variable, and the path variable is an integer ID. So you're going to use ID. So now we are going to create an object of employee. So employee object equal new. So here we don't need to use can use repo dot find by ID. Find by ID. Have to put here ID, integer ID dot or else null. So here we have to put it semicolon. So if employee equal null, have to get if employee corner, we have to return response entity dot not found dot build. So for else return response entity dot okay. Have to put here employee, so object. So now let's rerun application and see what you are going to get by ID. We are going to see if you can retrieve employee using ID. So here in the Postman, you see that you have ID of 1 with a matrix engineer, senior software developer, salary. We have John Mbanda, the 2. So we are going to see if you can retrieve a 2 or employee 2. You see, by ID, let's put 2 here as the ID and pass it here. You see, now we have John Mbanda, senior cloud engineer, 16M, and phone number. So we can also put here 1. You see, matrix engineer, senior software developer. So now we are going to see how we can create a new employee using API. So let's do it. In order to do it, you are going to use DTO. So here you have to come in a model and you have to create a new class. You have to call it employee data transfer object. It is a class, and here we have to use what we need here. We need only. We need only. We have to use we don't need the ID. The ID will be generated automatically. So we need only these columns. So we can copy it and post it to employee data transfer object. So we have to paste it here and have to generate getters and the setters method. Have to copy all of them to select all of them and create that method. So after that, what you're going to do, you're going to come to controller, employee controller. So now what you're going to do, you're going to create here to create a new employee. We are going to use post mapping annotation, arrobas post mapping. So now let's create a method, public response entity. Here we are going to use object. So and the method, let's call it create employee. So here we have to include what you are going to include is the request body. We have to validate. So let's use annotation of validate. Annotation of request body. And you are going to use this DTO, employee DTO. So employee DTO. So after that, what you are going to do, you are going to use object of employee equal new employee. So after that, let's use employee dot set first name equal employee DTO dot get first name. So after that, you are going to use employee dot set Rust name equal employee data transfer object dot get Rust name. So we are going also to use employee dot set position. Here we have to use set position. Let's delete this. Set position and employee dto dot get position. So employee dot set salary employee dto dot get salary. So employee dot set phone number equal employee dto dot get phone number. So after that, what you are going to do, we are going to save using our repository repo dot save, and here we're going to use employee object. You see, for saving, use this employee. For setting, we use you see that we use employee object here. This we use it here, and we also use employee dto object. Let me show you. This we use this employee dto to for getters, and we use this employee. We use employee dto employee data transfer object for getting method, and we use employee this object for set method. So after that, what you are going to do, you are going to return response entity dot okay. So we can use employee. You see? So now we are going to run. I'm sorry. We are going to run to rerun the project and see the output. You see, we have run the project. So after that, what you are going to do, we have to come and copy this by default, control copy. So here we have to use post method. We were using get method for get mapping. You see, for get mapping you use get method. Here we use get mapping. Now we are going to use for post mapping to create a new employee. So now let's use a Postman. We are going to come here and use post method. So we have to come to body, law, JSON, and you can paste this here. You have to remove this because it will be auto incremented. So matrix engineer, we are going to call it First name, let's call it Java. Second name, let's call this second name Spring Boot. Let this remain the same. So let's see if we are going to create this new user, new employee. You see, we have created a new employee called first name Java Spring Boot, senior software developer also. We can, and the ID is a 3. We can also create another. Can call this Joe Bisuma, senior network engineer. So let this remain the same. So you see that you create the employee 4. You can retrieve employee with the ID 4 using get method and the address 4 here. You see, can retrieve it. Delete this. So you see, you can retrieve that employee Joe Bisuma, network engineer. Let's use 1. You see, you are getting a matrix engineer. Let's use 2. You see, we are getting this. So now there is some way we can retrieve the information corresponding to. So after doing that, let's do the update. We are going to update the data. So by using ID. So now what you are going to do, let's use the codes. Let's terminate this and let's for updating we are going to use put mapping annotation. Put mapping and we will update using ID. So we have to write double quotation slash ID. So now we are going to create a method, public response entity. I'm going to use object and let's use update employee. So the path variable that you're going to use, let's use annotation of path variable, and it is integer ID. So after that we are also going to use validate and the request body. Let's use validated method, no annotation, and let's use also request body, and we are going to use employee DTO data transfer object. So now what we are going to do, you are going to use optional. So let's use the optional. Optional employee. So optional employee equal people dot find by ID, and you have to add ID here. So after that, what you are going to do, you are going to use if condition. If optional employee dot is present, so employee let's use existing employee for updating existing employee. Existing employee equal optional employee dot get method. So after that, what you're going to do, you're going to use existing employee dot set first name equal to employee DTO dot get first name, existing employee dot set last name equal employee DTO dot get last name, existing employee dot set position. So employee DTO dot get position, existing employee dot set salary, employee DTO dot get salary, existing employee dot set phone number, employee DTO dot get phone number. So now what you're going to do, you're going to save what you need to update. You're going to use repo dot save. So we have to use existing employee. So return response entity dot okay existing employee else return response entity dot not found dot void. So after that, what we are going to do, we are going to relearn our project and see what is going on if we can update the existing data. So let's update Johnny Banda. Let's copy this. So we are going to use put method because you see in a code what we used is put mapping. You see, because of this put mapping, we are going to use in a Postman put, and you can paste this here. You don't need this. Let's call it Jonathan Banda. So let's pass this and see if it is going to be updated, and let's make it 17, and the number let's use 88. So let's pass this. You see, now it is updated. Jonathan Banda. You see, it is updated. So if we try to retrieve this, let's delete this. Let's delete this. So let's pass 2. You see, now it is updated. We are going to update everything here. So let's use put. So let's use this. Let's use ID2. And let's use Joe Biden. President USA. Let's make 19, and let's use 1 here. So now let's pass it and see if the ID2 is going to be updated. Let's check in a database first of all. Let's browse. You see we have Jonathan Mbanda with the ID2, senior cloud engineer position with a salary of 17. So now we are going to update it using Postman. It is going to be Joe Biden, President USA, 19, with this number. Let's see. Now it is updated. Let's check in a database. You see, ID2 is Jonathan Mbanda, senior cloud engineer. Let's see if it is Joe Biden with a phone number and the President USA and the 19. Let's browse. You see, it is Joe Biden, President USA, and this. So guys, now we are going to write the code to delete. So now to delete, we are going to use delete annotation. So let's do it. So now we are going to use delete annotation. Delete mapping. We are also going to delete using ID. But this have to be in a double quotes. So this is error. This is error. We have to put it in a double quote. ID. So now let's create a method, public response entity, object, let's delete employee, delete employee. We are going to need the path variable. Path variable that we need is ID only. It is int ID only. We are going to delete use corresponding to the ID of employee that we need to delete. So here let's use employee. We are creating object equal repo, our repository dot find by ID. Have it right ID here. Dot or else now so if employee equal now return response entity dot not found dot boiled. So else repo dot delete employee. Return response entity dot okay dot void. So now let's run the project and see if we can delete employee. So you see that we have employee with ID 3 and is a Joe Biden, president of USA. Let's see ID 4. That's a problem. No, it was inserting data. So let's use get. It was using put. Let's use get with ID 3. Joe Biden. We have a duplicate. Have a duplication in the database. So you see we have a duplication from we was updating from 2 3 4. Now we are going to delete from 4 for Joe Biden with this. Let's delete using Postman. I'm going to use delete. Let's see if I'm going to delete it. So you see now it's passed with the ID 3. So let's check in a database. You see now we don't have Joe Biden with ID 3. We are going to delete Joe Biden with ID 4. So let it delete with the ID 4. Let pass. You see? Let's check if Joe Biden with ID 4. Let's refresh and see. You see now we don't have it. We are going to delete Joe Biden with ID 2. Guys, let's check if we have deleted him. You see now no Joe Biden we have. So guys, if you're more interested, do subscribe. I will also show you how you can consume this API, this RESTful API through UI or through web application graphical user interface. Guys, thank you for watching. Do subscribe if you're more interested.